Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about Goosebumps, Stay Out the Basement. Stay Out the Basement is probably my all-time favorite Goosebumps episode, literally of all time. It's a close tie to that of The Haunted Mask. But when I stop and I truly now think about it, yes indeed, Stay Out the Basement is probably the coolest and one of the scariest Goosebumps episodes I've ever watched. I've never read the book, sadly, but my God, this episode was cool. If only they will remake this in modern day and make it more edgy, it would be something. Which is really what's pissing me off about Disney Plus not adapting the Goosebumps books, but they're gonna make it more into like the movie, like the whole Jumanji thing. Boy, they missing out. I'll tell you this right here, right now. But like, what makes this so great is how dark this episode is. The visual filter of when you go down in the basement and it's like all green. The monster that is in this episode. The sheer fear on the kids' faces when they look at the dad. The dad gives some of the best death scares ever. The way this man look. Give him an Oscar, an Emmy, whatever now. Like, you truly feel terrified for these kids. The man's almost like Voldemort, like the name. Like, don't say his name. People get scared. This is how you feel when you look at this man. Boy, this is just a good episode. So, it deals with a family. Margaret and Casey, brother and sister duo. And they have a father and mother. The mother has to leave town to take care of their Aunt Eleanor. Margaret does not want her mom to leave because her dad has been acting weird for about like a week or so. He's moody, he's grumpy, he keeps himself in his lab, he's a botanist. And like, he no longer calls her princess no more. That was her favorite nickname that he ever gave her. Those two used to be very, very close, but now he's distant for some bizarre reason, and she don't know why. Well, at some point in time when he takes the mom to the airport, the kids are in the house. Casey and Margaret overhear some growling noises. And they're not quite sure, like, what it is. And so, like, they're heading towards, I think they head towards the basement. I don't think they go in it quite yet. And they just hear these weird growling noises. And so, like, I'm trying to think. I think they do open it up and they walk down there. And so when they're down there, before they even make it all the way down the steps, he comes back and he opens the door and he just shouts really loud, "Stay out the basement." And so they're all like, "Well, we thought we heard an animal down there." And he's all like, "No, you didn't hear anything." And so what was down there that they heard? Well, anyway, some other point in time, he's down there. And you see him mixing around some stuff, and then you see him take like a needle and syringe, and you see him open up like a locker door, and he's injecting something. We don't know what, but it's plants, and they shake. There are tons of plants down there. The atmosphere is amazing with the green lighting and everything. He's this type of like botanist, but at some point his kids will think of him as a mad scientist. And so, like, he's always leaving like constantly, and he tells the kids, don't go in the basement and stuff. And Margaret tries to be like nice to him and everything, but he's kind of still distant. Well, anyways, he leaves and they hear noises again down there, so they want to go and investigate, but they don't know what the world he's like doing down there and stuff. And so Casey, who, still optimistic, wondering if he could be like researching the rainforest or anything. So they go down there and they see tons and tons and tons of plants. And, the plants seem normal enough. But then Margaret sees a weird looking plant. So she goes towards it. And out of nowhere, like a vine comes out and wraps itself around her hand. She's tugging, she's screaming. It will not leave, like let her go. But she's able to free herself finally. But she pricked her finger on like the thorns of like the plant. And she doesn't understand how in the world this thing was able to move and just like grab her. Well, anyway, they hear the car above and they know it's their dad and they're terrified. So they're racing up the steps. But then Casey forgot his jacket or a sweater or something. So he has to go back down there. And you're kind of like, oh my God, like your heart is racing. Because if the dad catches them catch him down in the basement, he's screwed. But the dad's taking his time because he's enjoying like the flowers outside and stuff like that. Casey's able to get his jacket, make it up to the steps as soon as the dad gets in the house. He gets there in the nick of time. But he suspects they might have been down in the basement, but he's not sure. So at some point, when it's nighttime and Margaret's like asleep, she wakes up because she hears a weird noise. Or she has to use the restroom, one of those two. She goes to the restroom, only to find her father there. And something weird is going on. It looks like he has green shampoo in his hair, but it's not. It's some type of weird green gel, and leaves are growing from his head instead of hair. And it's like, what is wrong with this dude? He's some kind of mutant or something? But then he sees in the mirror somebody's looking at him. So Margaret rushes back to her bedroom, right? And she gets under the covers and she's closing her eyes. So he puts something on his head, like a towel or something like that, and he goes to investigate. And she's just like closing her eyes as tightly as possible. And she just, he just feels like maybe she's asleep, but he suspects something. Like his like tingly senses are like up, you know what I'm saying? And so the next day, Margaret tells her brother what she saw, and she's a little freaked out. Well, one day she's in the kitchen and she's spying on her dad again. And he's acting even weirder. This time he's wearing a baseball cap. And which is weird because Josh asked him, like, not Josh, but Casey asked him, since when do you wear baseball hats? Like, you hate baseball. But when Margaret's spying on him, he's eating something out of a jar, and it's green, but he's eating it very disturbingly. Then he takes a giant pitcher of water and guzzles the entire thing down. He knows somebody's spying on him. He turns around and looks at Margaret and everything. And she tries to like put her head back really fast so he doesn't like see her. When he leaves, she goes to investigate what the world he was eating in that jar. It was plant food. Why would a grown man be eating plant food? That doesn't make no sense. This is why this episode is so good. It constantly like having more reveals after more reveals. And what makes it even better, it's a two-parter episode. And those are some of the best ones in the Goosebumps television series. Because they have like more time to like spread out the story. So at some point in time, like there's a guy, professor dude from the university, Dr. Merritt. He works at the university, and Margaret's father wants him to go and look at something because I think Margaret's father lost his funding, and that's why he's always in his lab trying to, like, create something. So, anyways, before that, he fixes Margaret and, like, Casey some food and tries to explain some of the weird stuff that they might be hearing or seeing. And so he's all like, how would you like it if you knew I tried to mix a plant with animal DNA? And Margaret's kind of like weirded out, and she's just like, you put like plants in like an animal? So he sees that they're not like all thrilled about that, and he gets grumpy and he fixes them food. It's this nasty green muck. I don't know what they use to make this green muck, but it looks like snot. And it's gross and it makes me want to throw up. Needless to say, they don't want to eat it either. So when he goes to attend to his guests, they take it and they throw it in the garbage can and stuff like that. Well, he tells them go outside and play as he attends to the guests in the basement. So they're outside, they're playing with a frisbee. Casey still doesn't want to believe anything bad about the father, but Margaret is satisfied something's wrong with the dude. And so she throws the frisbee too hard, and Casey goes to get it near the basement like window. And he overhears his father and Dr. Merritt argue. Next thing you know, something grabs Casey. It's a vine and it wraps itself around his body. He's screaming, he's hollering, like, and Margaret is going over to help. And it's like a tug of war type thing. When she's able to free him, she rips the vine like in two. And the father comes up from the basement and outside and wants to know what the world is going on. Like, he is pissed off, angry. And so Casey's is like, this plant just like attacked me out of nowhere. And, it's not normal for a vine to do that. And so the father is pissed and upset, but even more upset when he sees the vine has been broken. And so he says he needs to leave. But then Margaret's all like, well, where's Dr. Merritt? And he's all like, he left. And Margaret's like, well, I didn't see him leave. Boy, he gets pissed when she questions him. Needless to say, he gets furious when she stares at him all the time and when she constantly asks him questions. If this wasn't a Fox Kids show, boy, he would have pulled that belt out. So anyways, when he leaves again, the kids are even more weirded out because before, like, when he comes back and everything, he puts a lock on the basement door. This is getting a little too extreme. What the world is he hiding down there? And so when he leaves for like the millionth time, Margaret's kind of like, you know what? I need to call mom and everything because this is getting like too crazy. And so Casey's just kind of like, why are you like judging our father and everything? Like, he's the boy. He's looking up to his dad. The dad's weird. He just doesn't want to believe nothing. But Margaret ain't having this crap. So she's constantly looking for the phone number and she can't find it. And so she realized it could be in the dad's room. Casey's like, you can't go in there. That's his room. And, she convinces him that they have to. So she's looking for it and everything. And he's in there with her. But Casey wants to hurry up and get out of there. And you can feel the tension because, Casey's terrified, but Margaret's determined. And so the answer machine comes on because somebody called. Now, they didn't have caller ID back then. And they had them old clunky answer machines. And so it's Dr. Merritt's wife. She wants to know where the world he's at because he hasn't showed back up today. Margaret now knows something weird is going on, but it's too late. The dad comes back home. Casey has to stall. Margaret knocks over the answer machine. And so she has to make everything look the way it was before he left. So he wants to know, like, where's Margaret? He's all like, oh, she's in the restroom. So he goes into, like, he's about to go to his room. He's all like, were you in my room? Like, he just senses something. But anyway, Casey stays there and Margaret's hiding under the bed. He goes back, he's looking for some stuff. He knocks over Dr. Merritt's wallet and then picks it up. But then Margaret sees worms falling from like somewhere and she don't know where it's coming from. She's almost about to scream, but then the dad picks up the worms and stuff and he leaves. When Casey goes back into the room, Margaret's all like, he had Dr. Merritt's wallet. Like, I know something's crazy going on now. But then as they're about to leave, she tells him to hold up because she wants to know where the worms are coming from. So she pulls back the bed, like cover a mattress or something. There's a bed of worms and soil under on top of the bed mattress. Why in the world is that man sleeping on worms and soil for? Margaret's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going in that basement. They go into the garage and they're looking for weapons. She grabs a crowbar. He grabs plant weed killer and stuff. So she breaks open the lock and they go down there. And it's hotter down there than it was before. And Casey noticed something. The plants have gotten bigger since the last time they were there. And so as they're searching around, you just hear all these weird monstrous noises in the basement full of plants with this green light just shining everywhere, right? And we can see it's weird. It's like a pot with a plant in it, but there's a foot coming out of it. And then there's another pot with a plant. And a hand is coming out, and the hand is moving. What the world is this man building down there? It's like something coming out of like Batman comics with Poison Ivy or something. And so like they see the plant that pricked Margaret's finger the first time they was down there. The thing is like a pod and it has a head sticking out of it. And then the head retreats back. Man, Casey's like, screw it, I'm spraying it. And kills it and stuff. Then they hear weird noises coming from like a locker. They bust it open. A man falls out. It looks identical to their father, but he's not wearing glasses and there are leaves coming out his head. And so Margaret's about to untie him, but Casey's like, no, that can't be Dad. Dad just left. And Margaret's all like, well, what the heck do we do? So she decides she's not going to untie him because that would be the smart thing to do, but she's going to take the gag off his mouth. He's telling her plain and simple, he's their real father. He's like, telling them that, that's a plant copy of him, that he accidentally made it and all this other crap. And in walks the father, grumpier as ever, talking about, don't believe that thing, that's a plant copy, but I'm your real dad and stuff. And so the question truly is now, who is the real father? Like, we assume the grumpy one with the cap is like the plant copy, but for all we know, he put the lock on the basement and been acting crazy because he doesn't want them going down there with all these plant creatures and stuff. So needless to say, the father without the cap and no glasses calls Margaret princess. She takes that canister. Oh no, I don't know, somebody takes the canister of like weed killer and they spray the one with the cap. And then it's a classic Goosebumps where he's like melting and moving in slow motion and like he just disintegrates and everything. And so by calling her princess, that's how definitely she knew like who her dad was, because that was their special nickname. So I love that payoff at the end from the beginning of the episode in the first half. Well, after that, it's the next day. We see the father bald and we see that Dr. Merritt, and they have plants wrapped up and they put them in the car. And he explains to the entire family, even the mom, that a week ago he cut his hand. Some of his blood mixed in with some of the chemicals he was mixing, and it created a duplicate of himself. And literally that duplicate wanted to make everybody into like a plant, and also make plant people. And so now, because of this great discovery, he's gonna get his funding back and everything. And so as the family's going in the house and they're finna make cheeseburgers, this is the part that never happened in the book that they just added in the show. Margaret has to tie her shoe. And next thing you know, a bunch of flowers with her dad's voice is all like, I'm your real father. Tons and tons and tons of flowers, all like, no, I'm your real father. She is freaked out. She runs into the house. The dad is now bald because of all the side effects from, like, the chemicals and stuff he was being pumped with and stuff. Because literally, it's crazy. This plant clone was going to make plant people, but also turn regular people into plants. Could you imagine if that happened in real life? That's literally something out of Poison Ivy's from like Batman Gotham City's playbook and everything. Boy, if only they were to remake this in a more edgier version, it would be darker than what this kids episode is. That wasn't that spooky. Alright, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.